Welcome to Wrasslin Raw!
All right, you're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when Raw became war and attitude ruled. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico. Oh, Jesus.
Merry Christmas, everyone!
God, it startles me every year. Joe Giammatteo.
Now, every year, this is year number 6. So for those of you listening from the great state of Montana, you've got a lot of catching up to do. 6 years worth.
I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett. Ordinarily, we would be examining WWE history, one episode of Raw is War at a time, but not this week. This week is our yearly, annual, special Christmas episode. It's that time of year, everybody. It's time to pour yourself a nice hot toddy and set your nuts to roasting next to the fire. Listen to the dulcet tones of Wrasslin Raw as we discuss what we got each other for Christmas and our Mount Crushmores and one or two other things maybe. So
generally just a good time.
Yeah. What do you think, guys? Another Christmas around the bend here.
Hard to believe, 6. This is our 6th Christmas show. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to a visit from Santa Claus for the 6th time.
He does like to favor us with a visit every year. It's a miracle we've survived this far.
Stealing all our shit.
Let's see. First up, let's talk about Christmas gifts. And I would love to impose upon you to go first because I have what I think is quite the haul here.
By all means.
Slide up on in here. Let me just pull this up in front of me so I can describe in excruciating detail. Get my cheaters on so I can give you the details here. So first up, from Mr. Joe Giammatteo, I have a fantastic autographed picture of Dan the Beast Severn, sans gray sweatshirt, but adorned with not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 belts.
Useless titles.
The man is draped in gold. No. Only one of them is useless. The NWA title held in his right hand. The rest of them, though, are his UFC Super Fight belts. So there's a couple different, the one's hard to make out. We've got 1995. We've got, I can't see what the year on this one is, but a good showing and proof that the man is the man. And he's got a very self-satisfied look on his face, by the way. Moving on to my gift from Ryan. It is impossible for these to have any kind of look on their face given the molding. But
me and Joe did not plan this.
Yeah, this was a very happy coincidence. I received the WWF Jax grudge match what would you call this? A two-figure set.
2-pack,
yeah, 2-pack.
I call it a bait and switch.
With bone-crunching action. Let's not forget that. Bone-crunching action is
just
on display
like
here.
Crush.
Right, yep. We've got, of course, well, we'll start with Frankie Carbone here. It's got Ken Shamrock. We're going to be posting pictures to social media, and I encourage everybody to zoom in on Ken Shamrock here.
Just have to take their word for it. It's Ken Shamrock.
The hairline on this guy, the look on his face.
It ain't Kenny.
I was joking earlier, ever since I first laid eyes on him, I said, that looks like fucking Frankie Carbone from Goodfellas, and just looking at it right now, I'm waiting for it to say, Como se dice to me. But it is very accurate in its look of bewilderment. Put a microphone in this thing's hand, and he's about ready to cut a promo.
Nobody wants to hear that.
Next to him, on the other side of this 2-pack, Dan the Beast Severn. And this is actually a pretty decent rendering of Dan Severn, all things considered. He's, out of all of the figures that I have, he's probably the most accurate.
Or Freddie Mercury, whichever.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah, this definitely is crazy little thing called love era Freddie Mercury. He's got the handlebar stash. I guess that's not quite accurate because Dan didn't have the handlebar stash. He had the serial killer stash. But he does have a raised eyebrow and a look of emotion on his face, which is not all that accurate. But it's still, his hands are open. He's ready to grapple. He's ready to engage in that catch-as-catch-can style of wrestling. whereas Shamrock only has clenched fists. And they are behind them like a portrait on a wall. They have a baseball card, what you would collector's card maybe, that has been some kind of photo editing software has been used on this to insinuate that Shamrock and Severn were meeting for a match in a WWF ring, which we all know never happened.
That was my favorite part about it, was that they put them in this grudge match together, even though they will never, ever step in the ring with each other.
It's a nice UFC 2-pack that you got there.
Yeah, and it's going to scale well with the other figures I've got over there. I do need to do some rearranging of my display shelf.
Did you open them yet?
Accommodate. No, I've been saving opening it until I have the proper room to display these guys. Gotcha. Because I am going to create a formal Dan the Beast Severn shrine on the shelf here. It's going to be right next to the Alex the Pug Porto shrine that already exists. And then we will integrate Ken Shamrock somehow into the lewd situation that I have Dave Hebner as the centerpiece in. So, excellent gifts, gentlemen. You have no idea how much I appreciate these. This was a great Christmas. Dan the Beast Severn.
It was
all of his glory.
Beast of a Christmas.
So Ryan, what'd you get over there?
I'm going to start off with what I got from Joe. And just so you know, I'm sitting here drinking a bourbon with a little bit of ice, and I'm wearing a green bathrobe while I do this, because he got me a glossy 8x10 of It's Gotta Be Kane. And in the picture, the most beautiful man in wrestling, Paul Bear. They're both in there. And just so you know, this isn't no ordinary glossy. This was taken during Kane's 24-hour run, because he has the belt with him, and you could see on Paul Bear's head, he still has the Band-Aid from the wound that The Undertaker gave him. So that's great. Thank you very much, Joe. That is a awesome gift. Two of my favorite people right there. You can't go wrong with either one of them. Very awesome. And from Bartlett, I got an autographed glossy of Dude Love. Have mercy.
Ow.
Mick Foley, my all-time favorite. I know I've been a big mark for The Undertaker over our time of the podcast, but Mick Foley will ultimately surpass Undertaker in my eyes and become my favorite. And that especially happens in the early 2000s when we get American Badass DOA Undertaker. I just lost a lot of respect for The Undertaker during that time, if I'm being honest. Limp Bizkit, fucking Kid Rock. Take your pick. They both fucking suck. So, thank you very much. That is awesome. Both of you guys, fantastic gifts. These are both going to be really good additions to what has become like a Hall of Fame glossy photo thing I have going around me in my office. It's truly impressive at this point. I love it. Thank you both again.
You are very welcome. And now you get to stare at Paul's beautiful face every day. So your life has improved.
Oh, I know. It's fucking beautiful.
While Dude Love may be hanging in Ryan's office, I have a feeling that Paul and Kane will be hanging above his bed.
Probably. Yeah.
Right behind my seat as I wear my robe.
Yeah.
It'll be right behind my head.
Well, speaking of that, hanging above my bed is a poster from Ryan that is a Stone Cold University poster, class of 316 from 1998. Very authentic, very beautiful work of art. So thank you for that, Ryan. It is displayed proudly above my bed.
Your wife loves it.
Yeah. From Jason, I got what I call her the beauty queen because I loved her gimmick in WCW before she came over to WWF, and that is Deborah. It is a 8x10 of Deborah that is signed, and the puppies are on display, of course, as they should be. And so that adds to the collection of the ladies of wrestling. And much like your collection, Ryan, it is a Hall of Fame collection going on right now. So thank you, Bartlett, for that beautiful gift.
Yeah.
I'd like to make one correction. It's a Hall of Fame glossies around me, and also Mark Marrow.
Oh, geez.
And also...
Well, Sable's in the picture.
Fine with Aldo. He could be in there.
Oh, that's right. Sable was the focal point of that
Yeah,
autographed
she's
Mark Marrow photo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Sable's not moving her mouth in that, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Still photography is her best medium.
Exactly.
I am glad that I was able to maintain my theme this year because, it's getting a little harder as the years go on and you get to more popular people. And Deborah was a little bit of a challenge because while we're not there in our viewing schedule yet, she does come in 1998. I had to double check that because otherwise I would have not have been able to provide a diva per year so far. So that's kind of my workaround there as I skipped ahead a little bit for that.
We need more divas.
Yeah. Well, this is the last year that it'll be a problem. We'll have plenty to choose from upcoming years.
Divas aplenty.
Yeah. Overflowing with TNA. TNA, not wrestling. All right, gentlemen, let's move along to our annual tradition here, the Mount Crushmores. This has been getting progressively more entertaining and progressively harder to do, at least on my part. Like I said earlier, I'm going to have to start keeping a spreadsheet of what we've got going on here to keep track of it. But
we may have to just take each other's, like, I will do maybe something you did 3 years ago, but...
Yeah, or maybe just start turning it into a clip show, the best of Mount Crushmore. The Mount Crushmore of Mount Crushmores. We'll just get really meta with it. So, Joe, why don't you take it first?
Oh, I would love to. So I'm pretty sure I have never done this one before. I hope I have not. I've totally lost track, and I did not listen to the old episodes, but this year I decided to go with my favorite promos of all time.
Oh, okay.
I will say this is my list, so fuck you if you don't like it. I'm sorry, but I went away. I didn't put any of the Austin 316 or the Cream of the Crop or the Hard Times or the Pipe Bomb or any of these ones that are considered the greatest of all time.
Sid with the lion is what you put.
Yeah, Sid with the lion. I mean, that's always up in everybody's Mount Rushmore. But I went with some different ones that I have. They're just my favorite, my personal favorite. So number 3 is a little bit of a controversial one because I never actually heard the promo. I've never seen it. But just through listening to recent podcasts, mainly JR, I've grown to just love this quote. It's just such a perfect quote for wrestling, and that is from Ernie Ladd.
Oh.
Saying, "I'd rather fight a man than make love to a woman." I just think that is like a perfect line for a wrestling promo. Now, the full quote, I couldn't find a clip online. I couldn't find shit on this other than the full quote, which was Dirty Rhodes, which I'm assuming is Dusty Rhodes. "Dirty Rhodes, you greasy devil. I'd rather fight a man than make love to a woman." That's the quote. The other thing I could find was that it was potentially from 1985. There's really not much information on that, but thanks to good old JR, that has become one of my favorite lines ever in wrestling. So that is my number 3. Number 2 and number 1 are both promos that both guys regretted after the fact. Number 2 is Booker T from Spring Stampede, 1997. I'm not going to quote him and his promo, but everybody knows what this is. He's talking about Hulk Hogan, and he's being comforted by Sherry there on screen after he makes a little mistake. Recently, he pulled up a quote from Booker. He said, "Yeah, it was definitely a learning moment." Just because I feel like I did make a huge mistake because I looked at myself as a role model, and a lot of young people followed my lead back then. I always talk about young people and being able to change your levels. Of course, when you're in the hood, you are going to talk a certain way around your boys. When you're at the ballpark, it's all fair game, but in certain places, you've got to know how to change your levels, and I was in that place.
Locker room talk.
Yeah, he regrets the locker room talk there. And my number 1 promo of all time, I've said it before on this show, it is the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. Bret Hart saying that if you were to stick an enema, if you were to give the United States an enema, you'd stick the hose right here in Pittsburgh. I have always loved that. It's very personal and near and dear to me. It got justified even more so at King of the Ring when the Pittsburgh wrestling fans were chanting, "Here we go, Steelers." Just further proving that he was correct. But Bret did regret doing that promo a little bit. He's quoted as saying, "I remember in the beginning they would have me say stuff. I remember I'm walking this line between a babyface and a heel, and I remember a lot of times saying, I've got to say something smarter than that. I can't just go out there and say stupid stuff. I'm still a babyface. It has to be done in a very intelligent way." Vince mysteriously ran out of ideas about the end of August that year. They didn't really push the US-Canada promos for me. Vince was the one that came up with the idea of the storyline about giving Pittsburgh an enema. I remember I was like, geez, that's a bit strong, because I always liked Pittsburgh as a city. And he was like, yeah, you got to say that. So I had no choice. That is my Mount Crushmore.
Excellent.
Yeah, good list.
Very well done.
And yeah, the Pittsburgh one, of course, hits home for all of us. So
yeah, it truly does. And he's right. Where else would you stick the hose?
Cleveland, Ohio.
So Ryan, what do you got?
I'm going with my 3. I'm going to be a bit of a Scrooge this year. I'm going negative. My 3 least favorite gimmick matches that we have covered.
Oh, okay.
Has to be ones that we have went over. It's a bit of a ghost of Christmas past, if you will. Yeah. So no kennel matches. Nothing that we haven't covered yet. That's not too far away, unfortunately. But my number 3, the Royal Family vs. Clowns Are Us, Survivor Series 1994.
I forgot about that.
Jeez.
Shit.
This match was Jerry the King Lawler with Cheesy, Queasy, and Sleazy versus Donk the Clown with Dink, Pink, and Wink.
Oh, God.
We had Vince McMahon and Gorilla Monsoon on commentary, so that kind of tells you kind of where we were at. I went back and rewatched all 3 of my picks here just to make sure I got a good, fresh mindset and just knew exactly where you're at. And they were all just as bad as I remembered. So this one was the second match on the card, which is arguably the worst spot. So it was fittingly put there as the garbage can match it is. And to make things worse, this was, of course, Donk the Clown, not Doink.
Yeah.
Matt Osborne has been gone for a little over a year, I think, at this point, and the clown gimmick is just dead and buried. Nobody gives a flying fuck about it. The match goes exactly as you would expect, an absolute mockery of wrestling. Everything about this match is supposed to be a comedy show. This was back when we were knee-deep in the midget shit.
Yeah.
Knee deep.
Yeah.
And Vince had so much fun saying all of the midgets' names, Cheesy, Queasy, Sleazy, Dink, Doink, Wink. He just fucking got a kick out of it every time. The match, if you guys remember, ends with all of the midgets biting lots of people's asses, mostly Jerry the King Lawler, a steaming pile of shit.
Yep.
From the early days of our podcast that 100% belongs on the worst gimmick matches that we've covered list.
I'm sure all that ass biting got a big belly laugh out of Vince, too, on commentary.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
My number 2, Bret Hart versus Jerry the King Lawler in the Kiss My Foot match, King of the Ring, 95.
Ptomaine poisoning.
It's funny, we've got Jerry the King Lawler now involved in 2 of these.
Yeah.
It's a good sign that maybe he should stay behind the commentary table and out of the fuck of the ring, especially now, because don't get me wrong, Jerry the King Lawler is an absolute legend, but he isn't a legendary wrestler right now. He's washed up. He's old. Keep him behind the commentary table and out of the fucking ring. And the other person involved here, it's another all-time legend, Bret Hart. So it's a shame he had to get his ass drug into this terrible gimmick. But I know Lawler, he has this long-standing feud with the Hart family in general, but this wasn't the way to do it. The whole premise of the Kiss My Foot, we built up to it for multiple weeks with every time we'd see Jerry saying, oh, I haven't washed my feet in a month. And ultimately, the Hitman beats Lawler as everyone expected. But that's not the end of it. Then we get introduced to Jerry the King Lawler's dentist, Isaac Yankem, Glenn Jacobs, which is probably the diamond in the rough here that Glenn Jacobs got hired by the WWF. Lucky for him, this gimmick didn't kill his career and he was able to move on and be Kane. But I don't know. The King, the Bret Hart, they're both veterans and they put on a serviceable match, but the whole thing with the foot, it put a bad taste in my mouth, pun intended.
Yeah.
And I thought one of the worst gimmicks that we've covered for sure.
You had to have loved the interview with Vince after, though. He's shoving a whole tube of toothpaste down his throat.
It's funny because all of my matches went in chronological order, and oddly enough, my number one being the newest. And my number one worst gimmick match that we've covered so far, Judy Bagwell on a pole. No, I'm Joe, you brought it up last week, so I couldn't resist.
She's a star now.
For real, my number one worst gimmick match we've covered, Razor Ramon versus 1-2-3 Kid, the Crybaby match, In Your House 6, February 8th, 1996, which here at the podcast we affectionately refer to as the Baby Bottle match. Razor Ramon and the 1-2-3 Kid, they had some iconic matches together. This was not that.
Yeah.
I completely forgot that the 1-2-3 Kid came out with Ted DiBiase for this match. That completely slipped my mind.
Oh, yeah. Is that when they tried to turn him heel?
Yeah, and during the time when the $1 Million Man was fucking behind everything. I guess even the fucking Crybaby match. And Razor and the Kid, they don't put on a terrible show here, but it's definitely not their best wrestling. And it makes sense. It's not a big surprise at this point. Razor Ramon, I think, is just a couple weeks away from walking out the doors and going to WCW. Sean Waltman not far behind, and for a matter of fact, neither is Ted DiBiase. All three of these guys are going to be heading over to WCW soon. But the 1-2-3 Kid, he doesn't know he's going there yet. So there's zero information about that. But what motivation does Waltman have for this match? He knows he's going to be completely humiliated. So why go out there and put on a good show? And Razor, he doesn't give a fuck. He's ready to walk out. The 1-2-3 Kid ends up losing. He gets a baby bottle squirt in his face, a bunch of white liquid squirt all over his face. Baby powders his ass and wraps him in a diaper. It was like, hey, Sean, eat shit and like it, is basically what they told him here. And I don't understand why you would do this. Like, you have two giant rising stars of your company, and you're doing everything in your power to hobble them and put them in a terrible gimmick where one of them is going to get buried to hell. And there's good reason why we still bring this up as our standard for the low bar of a gimmick match.
Yeah.
We still bring it up as that. It's why it's my number one least favorite gimmick match that we have covered here at Wrasslin Raw.
Yeah.
We should start a petition for Peacock to bring back the Booker T promo and remove those three items that you just listed.
They're offensive.
Yeah.
Anytime I ever think of the foot match, I always think of Joe saying toe-made poisoning. I also always think of the fucking Double Dare foot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the toe jam.
Yeah, the toe jam foot. All right. Well, excellent job, Ryan. Good call all around on that one. I decided to get a little weird with it this year, step outside of my comfort zone, and I'm going to be trying an experiment here with you guys. I'm sorry I didn't tell you ahead of time, but I wanted it to be a surprise. This isn't going to help our listeners out that much, but I thought I could maybe get a pop out of you guys.
Well, fuck the listeners.
Yeah.
Right. The Mount Crushmore is for us anyway. We have our Discord chat up here on the screens, and I'm going to be putting pictures up in Discord so you can see what I'm talking about.
Interactive Crushmore.
Yeah.
Look
at this.
Because the visual is going to help as I take you through my Mount Crushmore of worst pieces of wrestling merch I have ever seen.
Oh, I know you have a sound clip for me to pull up for you, too.
Yep. That's going to be in my number 2.
Things make sense about that audio clip now.
Mm-hmm. So let's get this pulled up here. So this is going to be my... Let's make sure it'll send...
I'm going to put something out there. Joe, maybe in addition to our GIFs, we should also post these images to our Instagram account so that our listeners will get to see them.
People might deem them to be too offensive, though. I don't know. If they're really that bad.
If you want to see the images that we're talking about here, head over to our Instagram, look at the post, and you can see what we're talking about.
Well, this one... Number 3 isn't too offensive, in my opinion. See if it gets on over there to you.
Oh.
Number 3, Superstar Shootout Table Hockey. Released in 1991 by manufacturer Remco, this was a ridiculous smashing together of two completely unrelated concepts, much like Pittsburgh fans starting a Here We Go Steelers chant at a fucking wrestling event. This was wrestlers on a tabletop ice rink that you would control from opposite ends of the rink. So there's knobs there. You'd use the knobs to push and pull, move the wrestler, and then you'd twist them to make them swing their hockey sticks.
If it was softball, at least that would tie in.
I'm willing to bet that most of our listeners know the type of device that I'm talking about. They're pretty common out there. So if you could just like picture that, but the only real difference here from traditional tabletop hockey, it's that you have wrestlers in full gimmick regalia instead of hockey players. So that and the WWF branding stickers on the sides of the rink were the only things that tied this product back to wrestling. And speaking of those wrestlers, this rink featured a roster of 12 superstars. They were actually pretty cleverly molded. They infused their gimmicks into the hockey stick when it was possible to do that. So like we had the Big Boss Man with an extremely long nightstick that was bent down for his hockey stick. Earthquake had some kind of like broom looking thing. I don't know what that was.
I see the Hacksaw Jim Duggan with a 2x4 that
Hacksaw
turns into...
had 2x4s nailed together. Jake the Snake Roberts was using the tail of his snake. I couldn't identify Hulk Hogan's object. Mr. Perfect had the same type of deal going on there. The Macho Man had what looked like a long curtain rod.
Oh, $1 Million Man, golden.
Yeah, with a large $100 bill as the slap shot part of that. The model Rick Martel had a very long spray can with an arrogance sticker on it.
The Warrior appears to be carrying a pride flag.
Multicolored streamers is what I took that to be. And Sergeant Slaughter had what I think was a shovel. I don't know. I was able to get a full, like a close-up look of individual photos of these during my research.
Sergeant Slaughter, that looks like a bullet.
I don't know. Like I said, I saw a close-up of it, and it was really impossible to tell what the hell that and a couple of the other of these were.
Oh, and I could see Hulk Hogan's. That is a bunch of dumbbells put up, like a bunch of weights.
Is that what that is? The imagery here does not accurately represent the actual figures themselves. This was a very much inflated image of what you were getting here. But the one thing that is true is that you did need a hockey helmet in order to play it, like this poor chump on the cover here. I wasn't able to find the original retail price for this, but vintage ones on eBay are ranging from $600 to $4,000 depending on the condition and completion. And you can get the replacement wrestlers for it, but they are just as relatively pricey depending on, again, condition. So yeah, that was a startling one to see just because of the mishmash of sports there.
Don't think that's a gift any of us are getting anytime soon.
No, I would never burden anybody with that. I'm going to move on to my number 2 here, and WWE Talking Soap. That's my number 2. While the hockey table, that was like a semi-practical cash grab. That was like take an existing product and slap a WWF theme on it. This one truly boggles my mind because this was a bar of soap. that came in a championship belt soap dish, and it had a water-activated sound box in it. Now, these were manufactured and distributed by International World of Toys in 2003, and the packaging recommends adult supervision while using it. This only came in 2 flavors. That's what we're seeing on the screen here. 2 flavors, if you will. The Rock being lemon scent and Stone Cold Steve Austin being vanilla, both of which I think are very funny choices. And these each said one single line. There was no variety to it. And I was lucky enough to find a sound clip of The Rock. So, Ryan, if you could please play that for us.
All I hear is, quite frankly, you stink. What is
so
the
like
first
part of
use
that?
that soap, jabroni?
Go wash up jabroni, because quite frankly, you stink, is what it says.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
I was not able to find a clip of Stone Cold, but his said, go wash up, and that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so. Yeah.
These look like, that looks like an early 2000s Rock, too. So this must have been like not nine. Do you have a year?
2003 is when this was
2003.
released.
Wow.
Yeah, he's starting to have the tribal stuff going on his shoulder there.
Yeah.
The funniest parts of this particular horrible piece of merchandise is the fact that they were water activated. So you would use them to wash your hands in the shower or like in the shower or whatever. The water would hit them. They would say their line, but they would just keep going over and over and over again until the sensors would dry up enough to turn it off, or else the battery would die.
I'm going to get one of these and use it at 5:30 in the morning and wake my wife up with it.
This is just repeats. Go wash up, jabroni.
Yeah.
Well, so once again, I was unable to find the original retail prices, but recent eBay sales are going for around $30 per bar, and
so that's affordable.
You can get both. You can still find both, and I saw a couple sellers offering them as a 2-pack. Yeah, so it's not impossible to make that dream come true, Joe.
I wonder if we'll have to replace any batteries or anything, though.
Oh, no. Once it's dead, it's dead. Unless you really want to crack it open and do some soldering, I'm sure, but
it'd be worth it. Wow.
And finally, my number one worst piece of wrestling merch of all time, the Danbury Mint WWE porcelain dolls.
That just looks scary.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Stone Cold one is frightening.
So this is exactly as disgusting as it sounds. These are porcelain toddlers made to look like WWE superstars in their gimmick outfits. And there wasn't a ton of info out there about these. They aren't listed for sale anymore, but they were a subline within the Danbury Dolls of the World collection.
You can't find them anywhere because Satan has acquired them all.
Well, so they were advertised as being completely porcelain figures about 13 inches tall. The clothing was hand-stitched, supposedly, probably by some small child in China. And they have limited head and arm articulation. My wife, who does unfortunately collect porcelain dolls, has
3 of them.
No, but she does assure me that they are probably well made. She doesn't have these, but she has other Danbury products. So based on those, she says that they're probably pretty well made.
Danbury is a known name within the scene.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So to be clear for our listeners here, they don't actually look like the superstars they're named after. For example, the Stone Cold porcelain doll, it doesn't have a little goatee.
Is a demon baby.
Well, it's a baby.
That will
Yeah,
haunt
it's like
your
they're all
Right.
toddlers or whatever.
But then, like, on the other hand, the version of The Rock that they released has the right skin tone. It's got arched eyebrows.
Does it have a mustache and goatee?
No. It looks
No?
like it, though. It does.
Yeah, maybe it's just the shading on that picture.
Stone Cold's the right complexion.
And the China version has black hair and a skimpy leather outfit
And
on this.
That's the creepy
ponytail.
one. It looks like John Benet Ramsey
Oh,
up there
God.
or something.
Yeah. And that's it for similarities.
Yeah, this is pretty horrible. I don't want to look at this anymore. I hate
I'm
it.
not going to be able to sleep tonight.
Yeah, this is offensive.
You
I'm not going to
ruined,
post this.
You've ruined my sleep for the next fucking month.
Yeah.
So they share the traits of other porcelain dolls, the facial features, the head and limb shape, all the hallmarks that make porcelain dolls a very special kind of nightmare fuel, which is why I fucking hate them.
Anyone listening, if you were weary about going out and checking the Instagram account for the pictures,
cancel that.
Do it for this one, because the other two, we've described enough. You get the idea what we're talking about. Yeah, you have to see these.
Yeah.
You need to have your own visual confirmation of just how weird and creepy these dolls are.
Far as I was able to find, these were the only 4 models that were released. They all had the Little moniker as part of their names. So Little Stone Cold was released in 2000, Little China and Little Rock were released in 2001, and Little Kurt Angle was released in 2002. From my perspective, at least, the only thing more disturbing than these little superstars is the fact that there were people out there willing to buy them. And it should be no surprise by now that I was unable to find original retail price on these. But they are still for sale online in many different places, not just eBay. And they are priced anywhere from $40 to $150 each.
I figured people would be like paying you to take it off your hands like the monkey fist or something.
There's like a landfill full of them somewhere, full of those and like ET cartridges. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. You've ruined my Christmas with these.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And that, gentleman, was my Mount Crushmore for the year.
Nice.
Ooh.
Yeah, I figured I'd tickle you with that.
Yeah, I'm still shocked. The Stone Cold one is just terrifying.
I go back and forth between China and The Rock.
Well, the China one is disturbing on different levels.
Yeah.
But the Stone Cold one, it looks like I'm in Total Recall and it's about to bust out of my stomach. And
you're right.
It's just fucking creepy. God
Erase your head.
Yeah.
You're going to walk in and find it like struggling in the corner going,
Yep.
Probably the most normal one is Kurt Angle. That one just, I don't know, looks like a little kid with his arms up.
I don't like The Rock's stance. He's got
the Rock one's a little bit weird. The China and Stone Cold ones, though, they're on another level of weird. God damn.
Yeah. Joe, if you wouldn't mind posting those on Instagram, I would appreciate that then, so our listeners can also have a sleepless night along with us.
Mm-hmm. We can post a picture of Frankie Carbone.
This is going to come out on Monday before Christmas. Maybe look at the pictures after Christmas, just for your own safety.
No. Everybody needs to see what capitalism has done to American culture.
We'll post the picture of Deborah right after it to refresh your eyes.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Eye bleach.
And then Frankie Carbone, of course.
Hey, go say dude.
And Dan the Beast Severn, multiple times.
And Dan Severn, yeah.
All right, so that's it. Another Mount Crushmore session in the books, and unless you guys have anything, I think we're done.
Yeah. Merry Christmas, everyone, or whatever holiday you celebrate.
Yeah.
Happy New Year's.
Yeah. We're going to be taking next week off as our holiday traveling and the usual rigmarole for this time of year. So don't be surprised when there's no episode dropped. But by all means, in order to fill that space in your lives, go back, listen to some of the Christmas episodes in the archives. They're all pretty goddamn good.
Or maybe the baby bottle match, our coverage of that. Or
dig up some promos on YouTube. Plenty of wrestling to occupy.
Wrestling.
Well, we'll be back in no time to cover that Brawl for All and continue.
We will be. We'll be back at the beginning of the new year.
Yep.
To really dive into that Brawl for All.
I can't wait. What a great way to start 2025. And that's it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at wrasslinraw@gmail.com. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review while you're there. Like I said, we're going to be off next week, but the week following, we're going to be back with the episode that aired on July 13th, 1998. So, from Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason. Merry Christmas. This has been Wrasslin Raw.